right, so I guess more serious question, what can we expect from the adventures or the quests or the PvE element, as you guys mentioned yesterday? What can we expect? How often are they going to be coming out? And what do you think the playthrough is on one? And is it repeatable and for what rewards?
Sorry, I was messing with the microphone and I realized you were asking me the question, not him. So we're still working on adventures. We have a lot of ideas about kind of where we're going to take them and how they're going to work. We know that there's going to be 20 to 30 cards in our first adventure, and you'll earn them by playing through a boss or bosses. We haven't figured out the right exact way to structure that and how exactly we want to give out those rewards. But we want it to be repeatable enough so that it's super fun to play through as you earn those rewards. So however long it takes to get all the cards that you're excited about through this adventure, we want it to be really fun at each of those times.
Hi, this is Mark from Team Liquid. I'm wondering, talk about the balance changes that you have posted so far. The first one being the starting buzzer. You wanted to change it from a 2-2 to 2-1. The first part of the question is that because you think the one-turn kill decks are too powerful, or because of something else?
Specifically, that change was made because hunters are very powerful for a large portion of our ranked audience. And we can look specifically at which cards are very powerful there versus at the very top end of play. And so we targeted Starving Buzzer to try and reduce the power of Hunter for most of the audience without affecting it too much at other levels of play.
But and the second part is, do you think that might be too big of a nerf? Because at a 2-1 for a 2-drop, a lot of classes such as Druid, Mage, and Rogue, they can just take it down easily. So it's no longer really viable on turn 2 anymore.
It could be. Actually, one of the reasons we did this specific change was because the hardest matchups, the best matchups for Hunter at those levels was against Mage, Druid, and Rogue. And so this actually gives those classes a better chance against the Hunter at those levels. And of course, it's not as big of a change against other classes because they don't have the innate ability to deal with a 1-health minion.
Hi, Steve Bell from BlizzMaster.com. So Android is a tricky platform because you have so many different style OS with different phones and tablets. How's it feeling right now on the smaller platforms for Android as you're developing it? I mean, does it feel like it's going to actually transfer well to like a smaller 3 to 5 inch phone, or is this something you guys are kind of to show off for the tablet versions of Android like the Samsung one?
No, I mean, it's one of the reasons why we waited so long to announce that we were looking at Android and iPhone is because honestly we didn't know that we could make the awesome Blizzard quality version of Hearthstone for a much smaller screen size. We got a lot of feedback when we announced iPad, like, dude, that's awesome, but I have an iPhone or I have these Android devices, so when are we going to see Hearthstone for that? And we didn't want to commit to moving forward with that platform until we felt confident that we could actually bring it to that smaller screen size. So for the last few months, we've actually been R&D'ing different ways that we could bring it over there. And I'd say it's only been fairly recently that we felt like, yes, we actually do have a vision here for how we can maybe make it forward and actually make the awesome version of Hearthstone running on a smaller screen size. So far we're feeling pretty good about it. You can expect to see some changes to the UI in certain parts of it. We really want to make sure that when I'm targeting other minions, I'm not actually accidentally clicking on the wrong thing, which is a concern. The hand isn't microscopic. We want to make sure that's the case as I'm dragging over the card, that feels pretty good too. And then also the collection manager is another thing we're looking at pretty closely to make sure we can make a great experience with that too.
Did you guys make the cards a little bigger too for the Android platform on the smaller phone size so that way it's more visual?
One of our prototypes actually does have that with larger cards is one way it could potentially go, but all this is still very much in the early stages as we're kind of still going through the R&D phase of exactly what we need to do to make it great.
And it would integrate with everything else, the entire platform, iOS and the
Yeah, you could expect that if I'm playing the game on my Android phone, I'll be match made against the same people playing on PC, and my collection will be persistent across all of them as well. If I choose to jump back and forth from my iPad to my PC to Android, it's the same collection.
Then one last follow-up on that. So have you guys thought about actually having a card preview so you can actually look at the card on your phone so that it looks like a card? You can turn it over.
Oh, you mean actually filling the whole
filling
size
the
of it or
whole
something?
thing, right? You can go through your cards.
I don't think we actually have tried
That'd be
that.
cool.
Yeah, that's a
Do it.
good idea.
That would be amazing.
Cool. Well, we'll add that to the list. Yes.
To piggyback on that, Dave from thesundered.net, what are your plans on how to, when you need to release a new version of the PC, and you also have, obviously, something coming out on iOS, obviously Apple has that time lag when
Yeah.
you submit something. How are you guys gonna keep everything in sync?
Well, so yeah, our intention is there to keep the releases synchronized. There is some logistics there and some timing issues that we need to work through. Exactly sort of like what that means in terms of the cadence of releases, we're still sort of working out the details. But yeah, it is important to us that if I'm choosing to play on iPad or choosing to play on PC, I'm seeing the same version of Hearthstone. We don't want to have like a lag there.
Let's follow up on mobile. When you're traveling, you may not necessarily have a great internet connection or an internet connection at all. So will I still be able to pull out my phone if I'm on subway and just maybe play the practice mode or manage my deck or anything like that?
Right, so you're talking about like offline play.
Yeah,
So,
at least specifically on like the mobile platforms.
yeah, it's a good question. It's actually something that, we spend a lot of time thinking about internally because, we really started focusing on the PvP experience for Hearthstone. That was really the core of where we began. And, it's because it was so fundamentally built around playing against another player, a lot of the logic lives up on the servers and really made that sort of the design of the game. What happened is when we got to PAX, we actually got a lot of responses saying, this is awesome, we'd love to be able to play offline and kind of some of the situations you're talking about where I don't have those connections. So it's something that we've added to the list. It's something we're going to be looking at and sort of see are there options for that in the future. But to start with, it's really focused on the online play, and so having that offline play won't be there for the initial release.
So if I am going to be playing on the road on my cellular plan, will that be eating up data like crazy?
We don't think it'll be eating up data like crazy. It will be actually sending packets back and forth, up and down. But we're really trying to design it so that we're being as aware of the fact that you're going to be using internet connections and sort of manage that as much as we can. Yes.
Is there any way to allow for outside testing for the either iPad or the mobile devices? I know that's difficult with Apple's 100 device limit and things like that. So is there anything that you guys are looking into to allow a wider audience for testing for that?
I'll be honest, that we haven't found a good way to do that yet. We'd like to be able to do it, but this is a case where we're kind of going up against some of the restrictions about how Apple is releasing apps on their platform, which, they're there for good reasons, and I understand, but from the standpoint of doing a public beta, there's just not really a good way to do that right now. So we're doing a lot of internal testing right now, and making that as solid as we can, but unfortunately right now we don't have any plans for a closed beta test for the mobile platforms.
Welcome to Team Liquid again. Recently, at least on the North American metagame, it seems like aggro has been dominating more and more. And in yesterday's community panel, you saw that priests were actually very low, and that's partially because they can't keep up early game with some of the other classes. Do you think this is a healthy metagame where aggro is more and more shifting towards the only viable option? And what do you intend to do if that actually tends to be the trend?
Those statistics you saw from the panel were 3 specific days in October.
Yes.
But actually, the numbers change all the time. And if you look at kind of an expanded look at several days, those numbers are actually closer together even than in those slides. Right now, certainly in general, things change all the time, right? As aggro becomes stronger, then people use more tools to be able to handle those types of rushes better, and then things start to slow down because everybody's playing against with tools to counter that kind of thing. And so things change definitely, and actually being able to respond to what the metagame is doing as that's happening is kind of an important part about participating in ranked play, and especially our new ranked system that's coming up in the next patch.
There was a question based on ranked play. In StarCraft, you have the ability to say, okay, this person plays Zerg only, and so far we know what their skill level is with Zerg. Do you have anything in place where they I'm going to play Warlock, this is my tier 1 deck, this is my best deck, you know what, I want to try my Priest deck now, and all of a sudden are they at the same tiers? Do you have that actually separated, or all of a sudden are they being paired, and could that be throwing off your numbers as well, because the matchmaking system is expecting a Warlock tier 1 and they're playing a Priest tier 3 at the same rank play?
Well, in general, with statistics gathering like this, there's noise in those systems, but often that noise is everywhere, right? There's enough noise that like it doesn't skew in one particular direction or another. And so we also look at specifics as well. We saw some cards show up in our list that were very powerful a couple patches back, and we said, okay, what is it about this and that makes these good? We look at every deck list that has that card in it and what their win ratios are, and even kind of in non-broad ways that are less affected by noise. So we can look at that, and also just we are keeping up with what that's happening in tournaments that a lot of you guys are running, and seeing kind of what's happening there, and paying attention to it on a micro level in addition.
Was your question also just around, like, again, if you want to play with other classes but not necessarily affect your rating or stuff like that too, or?
No, it was just, like, could that be skewing the data? Because I know a lot of people have really, like, 3 good decks, and then like, you know what, I want to see if this deck is up to snuff for ranked play, and they play it, and then it could skew numbers, or all of it, like, statistics could be wrong, since your matchmaking systems do try to get 50-50 win rates every time, just based on the player.
Well, our new ranked mode is going to function pretty differently. So in this mode, it'll be based on your current rank and not there won't be a hidden matchmaking rating. So if you start the new season off and you're ranked 25 Angry Chicken, you'll be playing against other Angry Chickens, whether or not you were legend rank last season. So.
Yes.
What are the plans for, or are there any plans for introducing client-based statistics so you can see all of your information, win, loss, class, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's definitely some feedback we've got from the beta, that they would love to be able to see a little bit more about their record, different classes they played with, how those have all sort of done relative to each other. There is definitely work we'd like to do there to expose more of that to our players. The big challenge we have there is we want to do it in a way where it's still consistent with the UI. It's not overloading with too much data and all on top of everything we have there now. So we're not necessarily looking at something for the launch time frame, but for a future patch, that is something we're thinking about internally.
Or what about even just maybe raw dumps of data so that users can do things? Because right now everybody's using spreadsheets, it's kind of clunky, or there's some websites that have popped up, but
It's an interesting idea for sure. I mean, we recently just started posting like the top players, as you guys all know, in a particular region. So that's just kind of the first step towards that. I can imagine us doing more stuff like that in the future. But if you guys have particular suggestions about things that you'd love to be able to see, or things that you think would be awesome and interesting to expose to the community, definitely send that stuff in. Because we'd definitely love to, we have nothing against surfacing that stuff, we just want to find the right way to do it.
Right, great, thanks.
Yes.
Steve Bell again from Blizzmaster.com. So how long before you can play as Arthas?
I don't have any information about that. Sorry.
That was a nice question.
Go ahead.
Would you consider introducing additional hero classes, like that's still a wizard but has a different hero ability, so it has access to the mage cards but has, say, pay 2 to freeze a character, or have you thought about other heroes down the line as things progress?
Yeah, we definitely think about tons of things we could be doing, and specifically about other hero skins or different heroes with new hero powers. That's all really interesting to us, and something that we think about, but we don't have any concrete plans for those right now.
Yes.
Talk to me about sort of the design process that went into deciding how spell power worked, and what is effective for heals versus damage. Will we see cards that have plus healing power on them at some point?
So I guess it's called spell damage now. Spell damage is a mechanic that we wanted to try because we think that Hearthstone is kind of like a puzzle. On your turn, you have your opponent has a bunch of minions out, you have some tools in your hand, and now you have to kind of figure out what are the best things I can do using my turn to turn this around and get the best position for myself for next turn. One of the things that I think makes that experience somewhat less fun is when your opponent is playing a deck full of 30 spells, and so on your turn you have nothing to interact with except point other guys at their hero. Now, your opponent's doing fun stuff because they're interacting with your guys, but it's not as fun for you. And so spell damage was an attempt to, even for decks that want to play a lot of spells, still really care about the board and have interesting decisions to make with each other's minions. So that's where that came from. Certainly there's no reason why we couldn't do healing power in the future, but we want to make it kind of compelling and done in an interesting way.
So with obviously the popularity of Hearthstone and the community had tournaments and everything, are there any plans being discussed about adding Hearthstone officially to like the WCS?
It's a little too early to say. I mean, for this Blizzcon, obviously we just wrapped up the Innkeeper's Invitational. We wanted to start with that and sort of gauge reaction from everybody who's here and from the community, and overall the response has been super positive, and we've had a great feedback from all of that. So I definitely think esports will play a significant role in Hearthstone's future based off some of the stuff we're seeing. It's a little early to say exactly what it looks like from a feature set or how we're actually going about structuring the overall tournaments and the process to sort of compete at that level. But that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at over the course of the next few months. Yeah.
The Blizzard Innkeeper's Invitational was held this weekend, featuring players such as Artos and Script, or Trump over here.
Yeah, there's almost there.
Hey, what's up, Trump?
It garnered over 100,000 viewers, which is equivalent to the combined total of the StarCraft stream, from what I heard from Blizzard. First of all, did you expect this much, or has this number really enlightened you about some things that are happening with Hearthstone?
I certainly wouldn't say we expected it. I think we were very pleasantly surprised to see that there was that much interest in the game. I mean, one of the things that was really interesting, even in the opening ceremonies, is when Rob Pardo went up to the stage and said, "Hey, how many of you guys are playing Hearthstone?" It wasn't the entire audience that went up. It was kind of half the audience, 2/3 that had gotten keys at this point and really figured we've got a chance to play it. But there's definitely a healthy size of we think our potential players out there that haven't had a chance to play the game yet. So for those reasons, I mean, until we really get to open beta and really sort of see kind of how it goes, we've tried to kind of temper our expectations and really sort of get a sense of what is the most fun way to watch Hearthstone competitively. So, I mean, I just heard literally 2 seconds before walking in here that was the case, and I think that's awesome. So it's going to be more about now how do we continue moving forward based off that great response. So we're excited, but in terms of where we go from here, we need to go back and kind of clear our heads a little bit and figure out where we go next.
And the second part of the question is, unfortunately, yesterday's quarterfinal games weren't streamed, and a lot of fans were disappointed by that. Was that just because of the logistics, or do you regret not streaming it?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It was kind of a little logistics thing. That, I think at the end of the day, we're sort of learning at the same time as you guys about what's really awesome about watching again Hearthstone online, and so I could definitely see us looking at expanding that for the future. Yes.
Blizzmaster.com. So is there any plans, or you guys talked about maybe adding in achievements like World of Warcraft style into Hearthstone? And the piggyback, is it possible we can have some achievements that link between the two games on Battle.net?
You looked at me, so you want me to take this one? Okay. So yes, we've talked about that, and we do think those would be awesome things to add to Hearthstone. We don't have any specific announcements on time frame or when that would show up. I mean, that has kind of become a fairly standard thing for some of our other games. And initially, we were kind of really putting a lot of energy into making sure the quest system was as strong and robust as we can make it. So that's where we've been focused for the last few months. Looking to the future, I can imagine absolutely that there would be a world where we pull achievements in. We want to make that a great sort of version of the feature as well. So to the second part of your question, crossover achievements between games. No real plans for that to speak towards today. It would be good to get thoughts from the players and community on what they think would be awesome. But
yeah, it would be cool if we could like unlock a card because I just filled Arthur for the 40th time. I know I'm using Essence today. And then I get a really cool card in Hearthstone. I mean that's just
sure.
That just seems like an awesome way to keep everyone playing both games.
It's a cool idea, definitely. So yeah, when we get closer to talking more about achievements and kind of what we want to do, we'll probably have a lot more to share on that stuff. Yes.
Somewhat related question to that. There's some Hearthstone NPCs in World of Warcraft. Is there any plans to put Hearthstone in World of Warcraft?
Nothing that we can speak to right now today. We do have the little game board there. You can kind of see
I know, I saw
presented. In terms of actually launching a Hearthstone client from within WoW, it's a cool idea. There's definitely a lot of challenges associated with doing something like that. So our focus right now is making the best possible client experience on PC, iPad, Android, iPhone. So I think we have a little bit of work cut out for ourselves right now with those. Once we get that like super awesome and polished and perfect, then super happy to talk about
deploy
that.
HTML5 because WoW has a web client.
There you go. Maybe we'll pull you onto the team, then you can help us out. Yes.
To my knowledge, Hearthstone is the first Blizzard game that was announced and released in a playable form in a single year. I'm super curious to know how big is the team that made Hearthstone, and did you have to crunch and how much to get it out the door?
So the team is 15 people. We've grown a little bit in the last few months, largely tied to the fact that we are expanding to the other platforms I mentioned. Like that was the biggest thing that led us to grow to, I think we're at about 21, 22 people right now. And, that was kind of brought on when we moved on to iPhone and Android as well. In terms of the hours we worked, it is certainly important for us on the team to make sure we're keeping a pretty good balance there. I would say the team has been pushing pretty hard and has been doing an incredible job. And we have every single person on the team is doing amazing, amazing work. But the team is as excited as you guys are about where Hearthstone is and feels super energized about its potential. Really excited about kind of the response we got here at Blizzcon, and again, can't really wait to get it out to the rest of the people who haven't had a chance to play it yet. So we're definitely going to be watching to make sure we have a good, sustainable strategy in terms of how we manage all the various commitments we have for the features and the platforms we've been talking about. And it may be the case that we need to grow the team a little bit more as we move into next year. So we're keeping an eye on all that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I know the game's not out yet, but can you talk on your plans of how you plan to introduce maybe expansions or new cards? Will those be separate purchases? Will they be a single pack type thing still and they're just all included? Or do you have, what can you say on that right now?
The best thing I can say is that we haven't really figured it all out yet. We have a couple ideas. Right now, the leading thought is that these will be separate packs you'll be purchasing. But in terms of what's in there and how they're configured and prices and stuff like that, it's a little too early to say.
Okay.
Yes.
So you kind of talked about all the stuff you're really excited about. What right now, trying to get this out to market and release, what do you still feel needs the most polish?
I can answer first, then that gives you time to think about your answers. So the biggest thing that I feel like we're still working on, but really want to get right, is being able to handle the number of players. We really want to make sure that anybody who wants to can come and play the PC version of Hearthstone as we get ready to move up towards open beta. And again, we've got a really great response, so we want to make sure that as it starts to scale, we don't run into service issues where there's outages or difficulty connecting, or I can't get my collection as quickly as I'd like. So our strategy for a while now has been to incrementally roll out the beta, kind of add more players, and then do another wave of keys, add more players, another wave of keys, and we're really happy we've got 1 million keys now distributed to our players. But there's still more we need to go. Like at this point, we haven't definitely not gotten everybody we want to. But the idea behind that is that at each step, we're identifying new risks and new challenges, addressing them as quick as we can, and moving on to the next phase. So we want to maintain that. We want to kind of continue moving forward in a disciplined way, rather than kind of adding everyone in at the same time and adding risk to the game. So that's kind of the biggest thing that certainly I'm thinking about, and figuring out how can we do that in a way that we're keeping the game awesome for everybody who's already in it.
I'll say that at this phase of the project, some of the artists are excited about working on things that are just kind of extra icing. We showed off in the panel some of the new effects going into the game for some of the cards that didn't have effects before, and that's one of the areas that we feel like has a lot of opportunity for really kind of exciting things that we can add. So that's something we're excited about continuing to explore before open beta.
Yeah, in the back.
It was talked about during the presentation yesterday that the whole discard mechanic from some other TCGs didn't feel like good playing against it. Is milling kind of lumped in with that, and is that something we can maybe see in the future, or is that something that you just don't think is right for Hearthstone?
Milling, which is causing your opponent to run out of cards, and other card games that point you to lose the game, is a mechanic that kind of runs counter to the normal mode of play for Hearthstone, right? Normally in a game of Hearthstone, you're trying to deal as much damage to your hero before they can kill your hero, and there's a lot of kind of combat back and forth to try and do that. Milling actually tries to ignore as much of that as possible and attack your opponent on a completely different route. And we felt like that was less interactive and less fun than focusing the win conditions on the single axis of trying to destroy my opponent before he destroys me. Actually, that's why we put the fatigue mechanic in the game, was that we felt like that actually plays right into that, because running out of cards actually helps you destroy your hero by dealing damage to him, rather than just ending the game.
Yes.
Two questions. Do you have plans for golden basic cards, and how would you earn them? Because right now, like Storm, I know people like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a golden Stormwind champion in a constructed deck.
Those are available right now in the beta, actually, at the very highest levels of the leveling system. Once you level beyond, I think it's 50, might be around 50, you stop earning golden basic class cards and start earning a portion of the golden basic minions. And each of them are kind of spread between 50 and 60 for all the classes.
Okay, and secondly, would it be possible to be able to play with golden cards you've earned in the arena? Like, hey, I've already unlocked Archmage Antonidas, and I pulled Archmage Antonidas in the arena. It'd be really cool to have golden Archmage Antonidas and throw golden fireballs just as a connection between the two.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, and something that we've actually been talking about recently as a way to make your collection matter more to players who really love playing in the arena. But it's not something that we talked a ton about.
Yeah, just a little. The one thing that's come most recently is if I put the time into getting this golden hero, which requires 500 wins and play with it. That'd be awesome if maybe that was available in arena as well. So that's kind of where the conversation was most recent on it. But yeah, I can definitely see us talking about the other cards as well. Yeah.
In Magic the Gathering, my favorite playstyle was Permission Denial. Psychic Venom, Dingus Egg, Erosion, that sort of deck. Are there any plans for like resource control style decks via cards, or like, hey, you just don't have 2 mana until you kill off this card I've thrown out?
You know, one of the things that I think we talked a little bit about in the talk was that we wanted to make sure that the Hearthstone is really fun, even if you lose, and those kinds of strategies are super fun to do to somebody else. But on the receiving end of that, especially in cases where your game is basically, I can't do anything. My options are 0. You're
Right.
doing all the fun
Well,
stuff.
it's the most effective way to win, right? Because you crush your opponent. Like, mentally and psychologically. So when you play them again, you're like, well, screw this, man.
Yeah.
Sure. So
In a tournament sense, I mean that's why you do like starvation plays in StarCraft, right? The most soul-crushing thing is to lose because your opponent has the whole map and you can't do anything.
yes. Well, so we felt like because we want this game to be fun, whether you're winning or losing, we have a lot of things that we do to help make, like, short games, average 8 minutes. That helps with that. These little victories throughout the game, but being able to play your cards and feeling really powerful on your turn really helps make the game fun, regardless of winning or losing. And even our XP mechanic, where you earn an XP whether you win or you lose, all these things go into just keeping the game fun. Because it's a 1v1 competitive game, you're going to lose half your games, and so hopefully those games are still fun to play.
And those are definitely kind of interesting mechanics, and there's a lot of coolness around it for sure. I think this just comes down to philosophical alignment with where we want to take the game, and thinking about what some of our values are, what are things that are important to us. We have to make tough calls sometimes about this is cool and an interesting mechanic, but maybe not so much aligned with the higher level goals of the game. And so I think some of these fall into that category.
What do you guys have a list of game goals, like core principles you want?
I mean, some of the big ones are some of the things that we mentioned previously. Like, we really want this to be a fun game for everyone to play. No matter what your background is, if you've never played a CCG before, you can jump in 5 minutes, be having a great time playing Hearthstone. So a lot of the design decisions have been made around that particular sort of philosophy in mind. In fact, we've had very specific stakes in the ground that we reference throughout all of development. That this is an interesting idea. How does this, rate when I sound it off of our stakes in the ground? Another one of the stakes in the ground that we talked a little about yesterday is keeping it physical. And when you mentioned that, you're talking about really wanted all the collectibles to feel tangible. I mean, this is something you've made a big investment in, whether it's an investment of real money or an investment of your time, just by earning the gold to get access to these cards. And so we really wanted these things that you were earning to feel great and actually do really cool stuff and actually have weight when you drop it on the board and little puffs of dust come out and bringing out your legendary card that you've been working towards for a while should feel awesome. So that's another example of a stake in the ground that we kind of really come back to frequently to make sure that, yes, we're still being true with what we set out to do from the very beginning. Yes?
So I understand how not having an active chat feature can be discouraging and not very fun, but the emotes, there's only a few of them. Is there any plans to maybe expand on that and add a few more emotes into the game?
Yeah, we're definitely going to be looking at expanding the emotes that we have. We don't exactly know how yet. Like, we want to keep the UI as clean and intuitive as possible, but that's come up repeatedly over the course of the beta, and I think that there's definitely the potential to add some more there. We'll probably have more to share on that as we make it a little further in past release.
Yeah, we're gonna have like a lol emote, a you suck emote.
That aligns with our.
Hold on, Guardians to throw something.
Yeah.
So there were two kind of balance changes talked about yesterday, the Starving Buzzard and Mind Control. And I feel like they were balanced for two very different reasons. Starving Buzzard is very competitive, it kind of needs to be cut a little bit. Mind Control is one of those cards I talked about Brode, it's one of those cards that just kind of feels bad when it's played against you. So can you talk a little bit about balancing cards because of that negative experience on the receiving end?
Sure, yeah, I mean, it's really the exact thing that I was talking about being still fun while you're losing. We often make cards, and they seem like they're balanced, and then Mike was a great example of one that, like, it may not even be winning most of the time. It may be actually not be a good card, if you look at the data. I'm not sure, but the emotional response is so strong that it really goes against our core value of making sure that losing is still fun, or at least not awful. And we've rebalanced actually a lot of cards throughout the course of our alpha because we don't have very many cards that really make it feel crappy to that extent. We get a lot of feedback when we do have a card like that. So even actually Mind Vision originally didn't copy a card out of your opponent's hand, it stole a card out of your opponent's hand, very much like Mind Control did. And we changed that to copy a card for that exact reason, because we were getting so much negative feedback about how it felt to see your best card kind of go over to the other side of the table. So those are the kinds of things we pay a lot of attention to, and are almost more important than actual balance numbers, because they're so important to the core design philosophies of the game.
Yeah.
So speaking of those core philosophies, in other card games, you do have cards which steal cards or discard cards from your hand, or do stuff with the graveyard. Are there any plans in the future to add those as card stuff, or does that go against your core principles as well?
We definitely could expand into things like the graveyard. We just felt like we had plenty of design space in our current setup that we didn't need to explore those things because they would add complexity, but we already had plenty of depth. And actually we have lots of really exciting ideas for new cards and crazy new mechanics that don't require us to break into that additional complexity yet. But those are options, and we have lots of great, we could add, who knows what kinds of crazy things we can in this game. It's a digital game, we could add, a 3-tier board, there's space, who knows, it's digital. So there's always places we can go that are crazy and new and exciting, but the space that we've created to design cards in this game is already incredibly deep. We have lots of really cool ideas for what we can do next in that space.
Yeah.
Are you guys happy with where Flame Strike is from a balance standpoint?
Yes.
Okay. I love it. But I hate when it gets played against me too. So
it's funny. I was reading an article, maybe it was on one of your sites, I don't remember, about a guy who won a tournament recently with a mage deck, and he cut Flame Strike from it because actually just his opponents assumed he had it, and so he didn't need to play it because they were already playing around a card he didn't have in his deck anymore. So it's kind of an interesting space. I certainly like the fact that it exists in the game.
What is the most overpowered class/card combo that no one's using yet?
All of my decks are very overpowered.
What details?
Actually, we're constantly surprised by where the community is coming up with new decks and combinations, and it's been cool to see what crazy new deck ideas and combinations come out. So certainly some we've never
What's the coolest combo that's just popped out of nowhere that you guys are like, whoa?
Certainly for me, the Wild Pyromancer Commanding Shout combination was not one I even realized existed until somebody made a deck like that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was going to say to add to that at the beginning is that I think the game has sort of reached a point now in its life cycle, even through closed beta at this point, where, I mean, you guys, as sort of like talking to the community, have a better sense of what some of those really awesome undiscovered strategies are. In some cases, more than we do. Like, we're discovering this at the same time as you guys at this point, and this is kind of part of the, releasing Hearthstone out into the world and recognizing the fact that the players are going to take it way further than what we've even imagined. So we're really excited to see that stuff at the same time as you. Yeah.
Can you reveal one card that's been gaining popularity over the past few months, even though you haven't changed it at all?
Mike?
There was a change.
Mind control. What's that?
Or there was a change because the priest was buffed. Was there
Sure, but that card wasn't directly changed.
anything that might not have been affected by the patches?
Interesting. Well, certainly as the metagame shifts, even a small change to a single card changes everything. So we changed North Shire Cleric to be a 1-mana cost 1/3 minion. And then that, now there's a couple of those, Mana Worm, Voidwalker, North Shire Cleric, and suddenly minions that have free attack that cost 2 are much stronger because they can take out those minions. Whereas before, a 2/3 minion maybe would be better because he could eat a 2/1 minion to survive. So now those 3/2 minions are becoming more powerful over time because of this shift towards these powerful 1/3 minions. Of course, as people play more 3/2 minions, then the 2/1 minions become more powerful because they can eat those 3/2 minions for cheaper. So these things are always shifting and becoming more or less powerful over time as the metagame changes.
We have time for maybe one more question, guys.
Anybody who has not had a chance to ask?
Yeah, anyone ask that one question?
This is a question. Trump has a question.
Sean, do you have a question?
I'll ask a question. Alright, so are there any plans to, say, buff cards that just aren't played at all, or is there a philosophy that there should just be bad cards around? For example, some are considered strictly worse, or some might not even be played at all. Is there any plan to just incrementally buff like a lot of them? Because I think it is interesting to have a lot of choices for deck construction.
I totally agree, and actually in previous phases of our alpha, we did a lot of that. Originally, Leper Gnome was a 1/1, Abusive Sergeant was a 1/1, and there was a couple other cards that we buffed over time because they were played less than other cards. But as we get closer to open beta and launch, those are changes that are riskier to make, and so we're less likely to do that type of change. In fact, I think in this coming up patch, we're doing the fewest balance changes of any patch we've ever done because we're getting closer to that point. We really want to leave the onus of the balance on the players and let you guys discover what's best and worst and kind of adapt to that. But we definitely pay a lot of attention to that, and I agree, more choices is better, and so that's something that we look at.
Yeah, and the other part of that too is, I mean, we're still also discovering, we have an idea that some cards aren't not as strong as others, but there's always the potential that somebody figures out a cool way to use a card in a different way than anybody has sort of imagined in the past. So I think leaving those open as possibilities is still interesting. I mean, obviously, you guys all know, the Angry Chicken as a 1/1 with 5 and red. It doesn't lend itself as a good card, but I think it's interesting to think about somebody out there who would love to build a strategy around that and see what can I really do with that if I start mixing it with other cards. And so some of those we kind of want to see like how far they can go and what ideas players come up with before we look at potentially boosting them as well.
I want to mention something about Angry Chicken actually at one point. So we look at the statistics for individual cards as well as class balance. So we can see what card, when you play it, wins you the game most often. And 3-Star Master, at one point that card was Angry Chicken because it had been played 10 times only, and it won all 10 of those times. So it had a 100% win rate, the highest in the game for some period of time before other people lost with that card.